My fiancé declared, "Available until someone earns my heart," during our engagement, so I replied, "Best of luck finding that," then updated my profile to "blissfully independent" and mentioned her. I'm Cole, 27, a software engineer at a tech startup here in downtown San Diego, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had my life figured out with Paige, my fiancé of 8 months after 3 years of dating. We'd been living together in my condo overlooking the harbor, splitting expenses reasonably, planning our wedding for next spring, and I genuinely believed we were building something solid together. My days followed a comfortable routine: morning coffee while checking code repositories, evening walks along the waterfront, weekend farmers market trips where Paige would pick out organic vegetables she'd never actually cook, and quiet night streaming shows while she scrolled social media. Life felt stable, predictable, exactly what I thought a healthy relationship should look like before everything went sideways. The first red flag I should have noticed was how Paige started flipping her phone face down whenever I walked into the room, claiming her work group chat was just drama I don't want to burden you with. Then came the sudden increase in girls' wine nights that happened every Tuesday and Thursday, always at some trendy spot downtown that cost more than our monthly streaming subscriptions combined. She'd come home slightly tipsy, talking about how her friends were inspiring her to level up, and asking passive-aggressive questions like, "Don't you think you've gotten maybe too comfortable in our relationship?" Or, "When was the last time you really surprised me with something meaningful?" I'd brush it off, thinking maybe I had been taking things for granted, maybe I should plan more date nights or bring home flowers more often. Looking back, I realized she was testing the waters, seeing how much she could push before I'd push back, but I was too busy trying to be the understanding, supportive partner to recognize the manipulation. The breaking point came on a random Wednesday afternoon when I was debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code and decided to take a quick social media break. That's when I saw it, Paige's Facebook post with a photo of herself at some upscale rooftop bar, wearing the engagement ring I'd saved up 4 months to buy, looking directly at the camera with this coy smile, captioned, "Available until someone earns my heart, know your worth, ladies #single mindset #worth it." The post had been up for maybe 10 minutes and already had dozens of likes and comments from guys I'd never heard of, saying things like, "Finally realized what you deserve," and "His loss, gorgeous." I stared at my screen for a solid 30 seconds, feeling this weird calm wash over me, like when you're debugging code and suddenly see exactly where the logic error is. Without overthinking it, I commented, "Best of luck finding that," and immediately changed my relationship status to blissfully independent, making sure to tag her in the update. The response was instant and nuclear. My phone started buzzing with notifications faster than I could read them, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize, and within 30 seconds, Paige's post had completely vanished from her timeline like it never existed. I turned my phone to silent, went back to my code, and finished debugging the function I'd been working on, feeling more focused and clear-headed than I had in months. Within an hour of my Facebook comment, Paige had packed 2 suitcases and stormed out to stay with her friend Sierra, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the picture frames on my wall. She left behind a trail of passive-aggressive energy and her coffee mug sitting in the sink, which somehow felt symbolic. The silence in my condo was immediate and oddly peaceful, like when you finally fix a squeaky door hinge you'd been ignoring for months. I settled back into my code, actually managing to solve 3 separate debugging issues that had been frustrating me for days, when my phone started buzzing with incoming texts from her sister Hannah. "What the hell is wrong with you?" was her opening message, followed by, "Paige is crying her eyes out because you humiliated her over a harmless motivational quote that literally every engaged woman posts." Then came the real gems. "Real men don't air their dirty laundry on social media," and "You violated her trust and made her look like a fool in front of everyone she knows." I screenshotted each message, not out of spite, but because I genuinely found Hannah's logic fascinating from an analytical perspective. Apparently, posting "available until someone earns my heart" while engaged was perfectly reasonable, but commenting on said post was a violation of trust. The mental gymnastics were impressive. Linda, Paige's mother, started calling around dinner time, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails defending her daughter's innocent self-expression and suggesting I apologize immediately before this gets out of hand. According to Linda, Paige was just empowering other women to know their worth, and I was overreacting to something completely harmless. She left 4 messages in 2 hours, each one more desperate than the last, painting me as some controlling monster who couldn't handle his fiancée being inspirational. The family mobilization was swift and predictable, like watching a corporate crisis response team spring into action. Meanwhile, I was getting intel from an unexpected source. Trevor Martinez, a database administrator who worked in the same downtown office complex as Paige's marketing agency, had been grabbing coffee at the same Starbucks in their building lobby for the past 2 months. "Dude, I've been meaning to mention this," he said when he stopped by my desk the next morning, looking slightly uncomfortable. "I keep seeing your fiancée having these extended coffee breaks with some new guy from her office. Brett something. Creative director type. Designer's stubble, expensive button-downs, drives a Tesla." Trevor wasn't the type to gossip or create drama. He was straightforward, reliable, the kind of guy who noticed patterns because he worked with data all day. "How extended are we talking?" I asked, keeping my voice casual while my analytical mind started processing this new information. "Like hour-long conversations, multiple times a week. Always sitting at that corner table by the windows, leaning in close, lots of laughing and touching arms. Yesterday they were looking at something on his phone together for like 20 minutes. Looked pretty cozy for coworkers." I thanked Trevor and immediately started what I call investigative analysis. Found Brett Williamson on LinkedIn. He joined Paige's agency exactly 2 months ago as creative director, previously worked at some trendy advertising firm in Los Angeles. His Instagram was public, and what I discovered made my stomach drop in that specific way you feel when data confirms your worst suspicions. Brett had been consistently liking and commenting on every single one of Paige's posts since he started working there. Not just casual likes, actual comments. Gorgeous as always on her gym selfies. Living your best life on her weekend brunch photos. That smile though on random Tuesday afternoon posts. Most telling were his responses to her outdoor adventure photos from our weekend trips to Torrey Pines and Sunset Cliffs. "Wish I could find someone to explore with, and lucky guy whoever gets to see these views with you." I scrolled through 2 months of consistent interaction, mapping out a clear timeline that perfectly aligned with when Paige started acting distant, flipping her phone face down, and scheduling all those mysterious girls' nights. The pattern was so obvious I could have built a presentation around it. Every single post, every gym selfie, every carefully curated lifestyle photo, Brett was there in the comments, playing the role of interested observer building rapport with an engaged woman. The evidence showed exactly what Trevor had witnessed, a systematic campaign of workplace flirtation that had been building for the entire duration of Brett's employment. What made it worse was realizing how blind I'd been. All those Tuesday and Thursday wine nights Paige claimed were with her girlfriends happened to coincide with Brett's comments about hoping she had a great evening or looking forward to hearing about her adventures tomorrow. The pieces fell into place with the horrible clarity of a completed audit, revealing months of emotional groundwork I'd been too trusting to notice. The next evening, I was debugging a particularly complex API integration when my building's front desk called. "Mr. Cole, you have visitors in the lobby. Should I send them up?" Before I could ask who, I heard Paige's voice in the background saying something about his fiancée and family. I told them to send whoever it was up, assuming it would just be Paige coming to collect more of her things. What I got instead was a full intervention squad that looked like they'd rehearsed their roles. Paige walked in first, eyes red from crying, followed by Sierra looking uncomfortable, Hannah with her arms crossed in full attack mode, Linda clutching her purse like a weapon, and bringing up the rear, Robert, Paige's dad who I'd maybe heard speak 10 words in the 3 years I'd known him. The fact that he was there at all told me Linda had painted this as a genuine crisis. "Cole, we need to sit down and discuss this situation like adults," Linda announced, taking charge of my own living room like she was conducting a board meeting. "Paige has explained what happened, and frankly, we're all very concerned about how you handled this. Social media humiliation is never acceptable in a committed relationship." I gestured toward the couch, curious to see how this would play out. Hannah immediately launched into her prepared speech about how real men don't air relationship problems publicly, how I'd violated Paige's trust, and how my response was emotionally abusive and controlling. Sierra kept glancing toward the door like she wanted to escape, which was honestly the most relatable energy in the room. "We're here because we love both of you," Linda continued, pulling out what looked like printed research about couples counseling services. "I've already spoken to Dr. Martinez about emergency sessions, and honestly, I think what you both need is a fresh start. Robert and I would be happy to pay for couples counseling and maybe a healing vacation to Hawaii. Sometimes you just need to get away from all the stress and reconnect with what really matters." The idea that they thought this could be solved with a vacation and some therapy sessions was almost impressive in its complete misunderstanding of the situation. But Robert, who'd been silent through Linda's presentation, was studying Paige with an expression I couldn't quite read. Like he was seeing something he hadn't noticed before. "I just want Cole to understand that my post wasn't meant to hurt anyone," Paige said, her voice shaking in that particular way that usually preceded her most dramatic moments. "It was about empowerment, about inspiring other women to know their worth. Every engaged woman posts things like that. It's completely normal." The gaslighting was so smooth I almost admired the technique. Take something clearly inappropriate, reframe it as empowering, then make the person who called it out seem unreasonable for having a problem with it. "The real issue," Hannah jumped in, "is that instead of talking to Paige privately like a mature partner would, you chose to humiliate her in front of everyone she knows. That's not how you handle relationship problems." I was about to respond when Paige completely unraveled her own defense. "Brett won't even look at me now because your comment made me seem like drama," she cried, the words tumbling out in a rush of genuine panic. "He was actually interested and now he thinks I'm toxic because of what you wrote. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel?" The room went dead silent. Linda's face went pale. Hannah's mouth actually dropped open. Sierra was staring at the floor like she wanted to disappear entirely. But Robert was looking at his daughter with an expression of dawning comprehension that was almost heartbreaking to watch. "So you admit you were emotionally involved with this Brett guy while we were engaged," I said quietly. "While you were wearing the ring I bought you and living in my condo. It wasn't like that." Paige exploded, tears streaming down her face. "I wasn't going to do anything. But I deserve to feel desired and appreciated. I deserve to have someone show interest in me, to make me feel special. You've been taking me for granted for months, Cole. You stopped trying. You stopped making me feel like I was worth pursuing." There was the real truth beneath all the family intervention and couples counseling offers. She felt entitled to emotional validation from other men because I hadn't been adequately entertaining her. The engagement ring was just a placeholder while she kept her options open. "Paige," Robert said, speaking for the first time since he'd walked in. His voice was quiet, but there was something in it that made everyone turn to look at him. "Are you telling us that you were developing feelings for another man while you were engaged to Cole?" Linda immediately jumped to damage control mode. "Robert, you don't understand. Paige was just feeling neglected. Sometimes when men get comfortable, they stop putting in effort. It's completely natural for a woman to need validation. That's why couples counseling exists." But Hannah was looking at her sister with growing horror, probably realizing that all her righteous anger on Paige's behalf had been based on a completely false narrative. "Wait, so you were actually interested in this Brett guy? Like, emotionally interested?" "It's not emotional cheating if nothing physical happened," Paige said defensively, but her voice was getting higher and more desperate. "I just enjoyed having someone pay attention to me, someone who made me feel attractive and interesting. Someone who actually noticed when I posted photos or achieved something at work. Someone who made me feel valued." "While you were engaged," I said again, because that part seemed to keep getting lost in her justifications. "Cole, you're being incredibly controlling and insecure about this." Hannah tried again, but her heart wasn't really in it anymore. "Lots of people have work friendships. Lots of people enjoy having colleagues who appreciate them." "Hannah," Robert said, and there was something in his tone that made her stop talking immediately. "Let me understand this. Paige posted that she was available until someone earns her heart, while wearing Cole's engagement ring, because she was interested in getting attention from a coworker named Brett. And now she's upset because Cole's response made Brett lose interest in pursuing her. Is that correct? The way he laid it out, clinical and factual, made the situation sound even worse than it was. Paige started crying harder, Sierra looked like she wanted to crawl under the couch, and Linda was opening and closing her mouth like a fish trying to figure out how to spin this back in Paige's favor. I think what we need to focus on, Linda said desperately, is healing and moving forward. What's done is done. The important thing is that Cole takes responsibility for his part in this breakdown of communication and commits to doing better going forward. The audacity was genuinely impressive. Paige admits to emotional cheating, but I need to take responsibility and commit to doing better. The intervention that was supposed to get me to apologize and take Paige back had instead become a front-row seat to watching her reveal exactly who she really was in front of her entire family. Within 48 hours of that disastrous family intervention, Paige was posting Facebook stories like she was running a motivational seminar, sharing quotes about upgrading your life and recognizing your worth, with the kind of aggressive positivity that screams emotional damage. The really bold move was her decision to make her rebound tour completely public, checking in at upscale San Diego locations with Brett like she was documenting some kind of victory lap. First stop was Ballast Point Brewery in Little Italy, then the waterfront restaurant at Seaport Village, followed by that exclusive rooftop lounge downtown that charges $22 for a basic cocktail. I probably wouldn't have known about any of this if my cousin Max didn't bartend at Ballast Point and text me around 10 that night with, "Dude, your ex-fiancée is here making a complete spectacle of herself with some corporate-looking guy." Max has been bartending for 6 years and has seen every type of messy breakup drama imaginable, so when he says someone's making a spectacle, you know it's bad. According to his play-by-play text updates throughout the evening, Paige spent the entire time comparing Brett to me, not in a flattering way. She was showing Brett private text conversations from our relationship, trying to paint me as this controlling, emotionally abusive partner who never let her express herself or have fun. "She's literally reading your texts out loud to prove how toxic you were," Max texted around 10:30. "This poor guy looks like he wants to disappear into his beer." The worst part was Paige revealing intimate details about our engagement and living situation, including our financial arrangements where I covered most of the rent, utilities, and groceries because her marketing salary barely covered her car payment and student loans. Brett apparently became visibly uncomfortable when she started detailing exactly how much money I made versus how much she contributed, like she was presenting evidence in some kind of court case. "She just told him you make 6 figures and expected her to split everything 50-50 like some kind of financial dictator," Max reported. "Dude's checking his phone every 5 minutes like he's looking for an escape route." The evening reached peak awkwardness when Brett excused himself early, claiming he had an important client call in the morning and needed to get some sleep. Left Paige sitting alone at the bar around 11:15, trying unsuccessfully to flirt with Max until she casually mentioned being recently single and asked if he wanted to grab coffee sometime. "That's when I told her you were my cousin," Max texted with laughing emojis. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. Pure horror mixed with embarrassment. She paid her tab immediately and left without saying another word. I felt genuinely bad for Brett, who seemed like a decent guy caught in Paige's emotional tornado without any context for what he was walking into. The next morning, I found a LinkedIn message from him that was equal parts apologetic and revealing. "Cole, I need to apologize for getting involved in what I now realize was a very complicated situation. Paige told everyone at the agency that you two had been broken up for months and that she was seeking protection from an emotionally abusive ex-fiancé. I had no idea you were still engaged until last night when she showed me your recent texts about wedding planning and couples therapy. I'm incredibly uncomfortable with being used as part of some kind of revenge plot, and I wanted you to know that I'm ending whatever this was immediately. I'm sorry for any role I played in making this situation worse." The message was professional, direct, and completely confirmed what I'd suspected about Paige's workplace narrative. She'd been telling everyone at her marketing agency that we broke up months ago, painting herself as the victim of an abusive relationship while simultaneously wearing my engagement ring and living in my condo. Brett's apology also revealed that Paige had been actively recruiting him as her white knight, someone to rescue her from her terrible ex-boyfriend who was apparently controlling and financially manipulative. The irony was incredible. She was calling me financially manipulative while literally living rent-free in my place and spending money I earned. I screenshot Brett's message and forwarded it to Trevor, my coworker who'd first tipped me off about their coffee meetings, with a note thanking him for the heads-up. "Glad I could help," Trevor replied. That whole situation seemed sketchy from the beginning. Brett's actually a good guy, just got played by someone who's clearly very manipulative. The most satisfying part was realizing that Paige's master plan had completely backfired. Instead of making me jealous or proving she could easily replace me, she'd managed to embarrass herself in front of her romantic backup option and reveal her true character to someone she actually wanted to impress. Brett's LinkedIn message was like receiving confirmation that my initial assessment had been correct. Paige was someone who manipulated situations and narratives to serve her own interests, regardless of who got hurt in the process. I saved Brett's message in a folder with screenshots of Paige's original Facebook post, her family's aggressive texts, and the timeline of her workplace lies. Not because I planned to use them for anything dramatic, but because I'd learned the importance of documenting patterns of behavior when dealing with people who rewrite history to suit their needs. The whole situation felt like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion, except instead of feeling vindicated or satisfied, I mainly felt relieved that I'd escaped before the real damage could be done. 2 weeks later, Sierra's situation changed when her boyfriend Marcus came home from his deployment overseas, and suddenly Paige found herself without a couch to crash on. I learned about this through the building's front desk when they called me around 8 in the evening. "Mr. Cole, there's a woman here with several suitcases claiming to be your fiancée. She's asking us to let her up because she says she lost her key card." I could hear Paige's voice in the background, that particular combination of desperation and entitlement she perfected over the years. "She doesn't live here anymore," I told the desk clerk. "Please don't let her up." What followed was predictable but still somehow shocking in its audacity. Paige started screaming in the lobby about how I owed her, how she'd given up her prime dating years for me, how she'd contributed to decorating our shared space with her input and presence. The desk clerk, clearly uncomfortable with the scene unfolding, asked if I wanted security involved. "Yes, please," I said, watching through my window as a small crowd of residents gathered in the courtyard below, drawn by the commotion. Paige had escalated to full theatrical mode, gesturing wildly with her phone, probably recording everything for some future social media narrative about her victimization. When security arrived, she tried a different approach, telling them she lived in Unit 412 but had lost her key card during a recent move. "My fiancé Cole must have forgotten to mention I was coming back," she said, her voice taking on that sweet, helpless tone she used when trying to manipulate service workers. The security guard, a no-nonsense guy named Frank who'd worked the building for years, called up to verify. "Sir, she's claiming you forgot to mention she was moving back in. Should we issue a temporary key card?" "Frank, she doesn't live here. She moved out 2 weeks ago. Please escort her off the property." I could hear Paige's voice getting higher and more frantic as Frank explained the situation. Then came the nuclear option, delivered loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. "I'm pregnant with his child," she announced. He can't just abandon his pregnant fiancée on the street. The silence that followed was probably the most uncomfortable moment in that building's history. Frank called me back, clearly not wanting to get involved in whatever this was turning into. "Sir, she's claiming to be pregnant. This is getting complicated." "Frank, we haven't been intimate in over 2 months. She's lying." I said it calmly, factually, like I was explaining a technical specification to a client. "She's been emotionally distant and rejecting any physical contact since she started her relationship with her coworker Brett. This is a desperate manipulation attempt." Poor Frank had probably never dealt with anything like this in his security career. "Understood, sir. We'll handle this appropriately." Paige's dramatic pregnancy announcement backfired spectacularly when Frank shared my response. Several residents who'd been watching the show started whispering among themselves, and I could see from my window that Paige's face had gone bright red with humiliation. She grabbed her suitcases and left without another word, but not before shooting one final desperate look up at my balcony, probably hoping I'd change my mind and rescue her from her self-created disaster. The next morning, my phone rang at 6:30. Linda, calling before I'd even had my coffee, launching immediately into her most persuasive voice. "Cole, I understand there was an incident last night at your building. Paige told me what happened." "Paige told you her version of what happened," I corrected. "I'm sure it was very different from reality. She's staying with Robert and me now, and honestly, this situation has gotten completely out of hand. I think we need to find a solution that works for everyone." Here it came, the financial solution to an emotional problem. Classic Linda. "I've been thinking and I'd like to make you an offer. What if I paid Paige's portion of your rent for the next 3 months? That would give you both time to work things out without the financial pressure. Sometimes couples just need a reset, a chance to remember why they fell in love in the first place." The audacity was breathtaking. She was literally trying to bribe me into taking her daughter back, like our relationship was some kind of business transaction that had temporarily gone south. "Linda, this isn't about money. This has never been about money. Of course it's not about money, but money stress can make relationship problems seem bigger than they really are. Remove that pressure, and I think you'll both see things more clearly. The problem is that Paige was emotionally cheating with her coworker, posted on Facebook that she was available for other men while wearing my engagement ring, and has shown me exactly what she thinks of me as a person. Money isn't going to fix any of that." Linda went quiet for a moment, probably recalibrating her approach. "Cole, you have to understand, Paige has been under tremendous stress. Young women today face so much pressure to have perfect relationships, perfect careers, perfect lives. Sometimes they make mistakes when they're feeling overwhelmed. Emotional cheating isn't a mistake, Linda. It's a choice. A series of choices made over months. But you loved her enough to propose. That has to count for something. People can change, Cole. People can grow. People can change, but only if they want to. Paige doesn't want to change. She wants me to accept being treated like a backup option while she explores other relationships." The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, with Linda cycling through every possible angle: couples therapy, time apart, fresh starts, second chances. But every suggestion boiled down to the same thing: me accepting Paige's behavior and pretending it never happened. When Linda finally realized I wasn't going to budge, her tone shifted from persuasive to slightly threatening. "I hope you don't regret this decision, Cole. Good women aren't easy to find, and Paige really did love you, despite whatever mistakes she made. Good women don't post on Facebook about being available for other men while engaged," I replied. "And they don't call their fiancés financial safety nets instead of partners." I hung up and sat in my quiet condo, drinking my coffee and watching the morning fog roll in over San Diego Harbor. For the first time in months, I felt completely peaceful. Paige's next move was so over the top that even I had to admire the sheer audacity of it. 2 weeks after the building incident, she launched a YouTube channel called Healing After Narcissistic Abuse, and started posting videos where she described me as this controlling, financially manipulative monster who'd systematically destroyed her self-esteem over 3 years. The production value was surprisingly professional. She'd clearly invested in decent lighting and a ring light, probably with money she'd borrowed from someone else. Each video followed the same format: soft lighting, tissues strategically placed, her sitting cross-legged on what looked like Sierra's couch, speaking in this breathy, vulnerable voice about her recovery journey from my supposed emotional terrorism. "He isolated me from my friends by making me feel guilty for having social needs," she explained in one video, conveniently forgetting that I'd actively encouraged her girls' nights and never once complained about her social calendar. "Financial abuse is real, and it's subtle," she continued in another episode. "He made me completely dependent on him, then used that dependency to control every aspect of my life." The irony was staggering. Someone who'd literally called me her financial safety net was now claiming I'd financially abused her by paying for everything. But Paige wasn't content with just poisoning random strangers against me on YouTube. She organized a group text intervention that included Hannah, Linda, Robert, Sierra, my cousin Max from the brewery, and even some mutual friends from college I hadn't talked to in months. The message was simple but devastating. I was an abusive narcissist who'd manipulated everyone into thinking Paige was the problem when she was actually the victim of my systematic psychological warfare. The group text exploded with people taking sides, asking questions, demanding explanations. I watched this digital drama unfold for about 6 hours before I decided to respond with facts instead of emotions. I shared screenshots of Paige's original Facebook post, the "available until someone earns my heart" declaration that started everything. I included Brett's LinkedIn message apologizing for being manipulated and revealing Paige's lies about our relationship status at work. I provided a timeline showing how Paige had been telling her coworkers we'd broken up months before the Facebook incident while simultaneously living in my condo and wearing my engagement ring. The group text went silent for about an hour after I posted the evidence. Then people started asking very different questions. Hannah tried to do damage control, but even she couldn't explain away the screenshots. Linda attempted to reframe everything as a misunderstanding blown out of proportion, but the timeline was too clear, too damning. Robert, who'd been mostly silent since the family intervention, finally spoke up in the group chat. "Paige, these messages suggest you were being dishonest with everyone, including us. That's very concerning." But the real revelation came from Sierra, who privately messaged me 3 days later. She was exhausted from Paige crashing on her couch again and apparently wanted to clear her conscience. "Cole, I need to apologize," her message started. "I've been enabling Paige's behavior because she's my friend, but what she's doing to you isn't right. And honestly, Brett wasn't the first." Sierra went on to explain that throughout our entire engagement, Paige had been maintaining what she called backup relationships with multiple men. There was Derek, a personal trainer at her gym who she'd been flirting with since before we got engaged. Marcus, our neighbor in 3B who she'd regularly chat with in the elevator and had given her number to in case of emergencies. 2 former coworkers, James and Tyler, who she kept in regular contact with, meeting for coffee and lunch dates she disguised as networking opportunities. She literally told me she needed to keep her options open because she wasn't sure about marriage, Sierra revealed. She said engagement was just a trial period and she wanted to make sure she wasn't settling. I thought it was just cold feet, but now I realize she was actively shopping around while wearing your ring. Sierra's message included screenshots of conversations where Paige had bragged about having for different guys who would probably propose if I gave them the right signals. The systematic nature of her deception was breathtaking. She'd been running a whole operation designed to ensure she always had a backup plan, no matter what happened with our relationship. The group text revelations damaged Paige's narrative significantly, but she wasn't finished yet. Her final play was so desperate and potentially destructive that it crossed every line I thought existed between personal drama and professional sabotage. Last Tuesday, I was in the middle of a client presentation when my boss, Jennifer, knocked on the conference room door. "Cole, I need to speak with you privately. There's a situation." In her office, Jennifer explained that 2 women had shown up at our building's reception desk claiming to be family members reporting concerns about my mental health and potential workplace violence. They'd told security that I was emotionally unstable, potentially dangerous, and that my colleagues should be aware of my history of abusive behavior that could escalate into workplace incidents. The women were Paige and Linda, and they'd apparently prepared a whole presentation about how my controlling personality and rage issues made me a threat to office safety. They demanded to speak with HR and my supervisor about implementing safety measures to protect other employees from my allegedly volatile behavior. "They seemed very concerned," Jennifer said carefully, "but also very emotional and possibly not entirely reliable. They kept contradicting each other and couldn't provide any specific examples of threatening behavior. Security asked them to leave when they became increasingly agitated and started demanding access to your work area. Building security had escorted them out when Linda started raising her voice and Paige began recording everything on her phone, probably for another YouTube episode about corporate corruption and protecting abuse victims. Our HR director, Michelle, had been called in to assess whether I posed any actual risk to workplace safety. After reviewing their claims and finding zero evidence of concerning behavior in my employment record, she'd concluded that this was personal drama being weaponized to damage my career. "We're issuing a formal cease and desist letter to both women," Michelle explained when she called me later. "They're banned from our property and we've documented everything in case they escalate further. We've also flagged this incident with building security across our other office locations. If they show up anywhere else trying to interfere with your employment, we'll pursue legal action." The cease and desist letter was comprehensive and professionally brutal. It detailed how Paige and Linda's actions constituted harassment, defamation, and interference with business operations. It warned them that any further attempts to contact my workplace, colleagues, or clients would result in immediate legal action, including restraining orders and civil lawsuits for damages to my professional reputation. Getting served with that letter apparently broke something in Paige's campaign against me. Sierra texted me that evening, "Paige is absolutely losing it. She's convinced you have lawyers and private investigators working against her now. She's talking about moving back to her mom's place permanently and starting over somewhere else." The YouTube channel went private the next day, and Paige's social media presence became sporadic and increasingly unhinged. The woman who'd once declared herself available until someone earns her heart had managed to systematically destroy every relationship, opportunity, and bridge in her life through her own choices and manipulations. The domino effect of Paige's workplace sabotage campaign created consequences she clearly hadn't anticipated. Within a week of her and Linda's visit to my office, I learned through Trevor that Paige had been terminated from her marketing agency. The official reason was excessive personal drama affecting work environment and excessive absences, but the real story was that she'd been missing days to film YouTube content while simultaneously creating a toxic atmosphere by constantly discussing her personal life with colleagues who were trying to work. Brett, understandably wanting to distance himself from the chaos he'd inadvertently become part of, requested a transfer to their Los Angeles office and was gone within 2 weeks. According to Trevor, Brett had told their HR department about feeling uncomfortable with Paige's behavior and wanted a clean slate somewhere else. I actually felt bad for the guy. He'd just been trying to be friendly with a new coworker and ended up getting dragged into someone else's relationship drama. The family fallout was equally dramatic and, frankly, long overdue. Robert and Linda's marriage, apparently strained for years by Linda's enabling of Paige's entitled behavior, finally reached its breaking point. Robert moved out to stay with his brother, telling Linda he was done covering for their daughter's destructive choices and tired of being asked to financially support her endless crises. "I've been watching this pattern for 25 years, he apparently told Linda, according to Hannah, who shared this information in the family group chat before dramatically leaving it herself. "Every time Paige faces consequences for her actions, you swoop in to rescue her and teach her that someone else will always fix her mistakes. I'm done being part of that cycle." Sierra, who'd been housing Paige on her couch again after the building incident, finally reached her limit and changed her locks while Paige was out job hunting. She left Paige's belongings neatly packed by the door with a note explaining that she couldn't continue enabling behavior that was clearly destructive to everyone involved. The note, which Paige posted on her Instagram story in a fit of rage, said, "I love you as a friend, but I can't watch you destroy every relationship in your life and then blame everyone else for the consequences. You need professional help, not another couch to crash on." Hannah, apparently fed up with being caught between her sister and the reality of Paige's behavior, posted something on Facebook about family members who refuse accountability and expect everyone else to clean up their messes. She didn't name Paige directly, but everyone who knew the family situation understood exactly who she was talking about. The post got dozens of supportive comments from relatives and family friends who'd apparently been watching this pattern for years but felt unable to speak up until someone else broke the silence. Meanwhile, my life had taken a completely different trajectory. I'd started sailing again, something I'd given up during my relationship with Paige because she found it boring and pointless. At the Mission Bay Sailing Club, I met Iris, a marine biologist who worked at Scripps Institution of Oceanography studying ocean acidification and its effects on local ecosystems. Our first conversation happened when we were both rigging our boats on a perfect San Diego morning, and she made a joke about hoping I kept my relationship status accurate across all social media platforms. Too many people out there posting about being available until someone earns their heart while wearing engagement rings, she said with a laugh, not knowing she was referencing exactly what had ended my previous relationship. I nearly choked on my coffee. You saw that drama unfold online? Hard to miss when it's happening in your own city. Though I have to say, I respected whoever responded with, "Best of luck finding that." Sometimes you just have to call people out on their nonsense. Iris was everything Paige wasn't: intellectually curious, financially independent, emotionally mature, and genuinely interested in building something meaningful rather than just finding someone to fund her lifestyle. She had her own downtown condo, drove a paid-off Honda Civic, and insisted on splitting every check during our early dates. More importantly, she actually listened when I talked about my work, asked thoughtful questions about market analysis, and shared fascinating details about her research into ocean chemistry that made me realize how narrow my world had become. "You seem surprised that I'm interested in your job," she observed after our third date, when I'd caught myself apologizing for talking too much about a complex client portfolio I was managing. "Why wouldn't I be interested in what you do for a living?" I realized I'd been trained by Paige to believe that my interests were boring, my work was just a source of income for other people's enjoyment, and my thoughts weren't worth sharing unless they involved spending money on someone else. Iris helped me remember what it felt like to be appreciated as a whole person instead of just a financial resource. Paige made one final desperate play for attention about a month into my relationship with Iris. She posted on Facebook with a crying selfie and a caption about rising from betrayal and learning to heal after narcissistic abuse. The post was clearly designed to generate sympathy and paint herself as the victim of our relationship, probably hoping to rehabilitate her image after the workplace disasters and family fallout. But the comments section backfired spectacularly. Someone, I never found out who, commented, "Wait, if this guy was really abusive like you've been saying on your YouTube channel, why are you posting about trying to win him back? Doesn't that seem contradictory?" Other people started asking similar questions, pointing out inconsistencies between her healing from abuse narrative and her obvious attempts to reconcile with me. Someone else commented, "Girl, you posted about being available until someone earns your heart while engaged to this dude. Maybe focus on your own accountability instead of playing victim." The post disappeared within 30 seconds, but screenshots had already been taken and shared. Paige's remaining supporters were starting to see through the contradictory narratives she'd been spinning. Her YouTube subscriber count, which had peaked around 800 people, started dropping as viewers realized they were watching someone exploit their own bad decisions for content rather than genuinely working through trauma. The last I heard about Paige came through Hannah, who'd apparently maintained minimal contact out of family obligation. Paige had moved back in with Linda full-time and was working at a retail job in a shopping mall, making about $12 an hour and living the kind of paycheck-to-paycheck existence she'd always claimed was beneath her. Linda, now separated from Robert and dealing with her own financial stress without his income, couldn't subsidize Paige's lifestyle the way she'd always done. The designer handbags were being sold online, the lease on the BMW had ended, and Paige was taking public transportation for the first time since high school. "She keeps talking about starting over somewhere new," Hannah told me during a brief conversation when we ran into each other at the grocery store. "But she hasn't learned anything. She's still blaming everyone else for her problems and looking for someone to rescue her instead of taking responsibility for her choices. I feel bad for her, but I can't enable that behavior anymore." I didn't feel bad for Paige. I felt relieved that I'd escaped before the real damage could be done. Looking back, I could see how systematically she'd been undermining my self-worth, isolating me from friends, and conditioning me to believe that my value in the relationship was purely financial. The red flags had been there from the beginning. I'd just been too hopeful, too willing to see the best in someone, too naive about how manipulative people could be when they wanted something. 6 months later, Iris and I were talking about moving in together, splitting expenses equally, planning weekend trips we could both afford, and building the kind of partnership I'd thought I had with Paige but never actually experienced. The difference between being someone's financial safety net and being someone's genuine partner was like night and day. When Iris looked at me, she saw Cole the person, not Cole the paycheck. When she posted photos of us together, her captions were about shared experiences and genuine affection, not about lifestyle branding and showing off what someone else had bought for her. The whole experience taught me that authentic relationships require mutual respect, shared responsibility, and genuine care for each other's well-being, not just one person funding another person's fantasy life while being treated like an ATM with feelings. Sometimes the best response to someone declaring themselves available until someone earns their heart is simply wishing them the best of luck finding that person and walking away with your dignity intact.